Alright, welcome back. Fox here, and it's time to talk about bases again. Last time we took a look at all of the bases in Cascade Hills and organized them from lowest rated to highest rated, and now it's Meagher Valley's turn. Remember, the rules are that if the bases are fairly similar in their tactical value, they will share a rating rather than have separate ones. And I will also factor in things like driving distance, something that you might not necessarily care about. As a result, if your list would differ from mine, let me know down in the comments section. Give me your counter list, and where ours differ, let me know why. Well, let's get started with the land of Meagher Valley itself. Meagher Valley is without a doubt the easiest region to start in because it is extremely flat with just some rolling hills, a river, and there is a lake. But it doesn't stop you from really just having a point A and a point B and driving in a straight line. You can drive through the river as long as you avoid the rocks, and the lake, while out of the way, you can actually still drive right through it, no problem. Nothing really stops you in Meagher Valley from really going anywhere you want in a straight line, so it's very enjoyable to drive around in. The bases are also more powerful than average, having more customization options, having more large facilities than other regions. All of that combines into Meagher Valley being pretty much the easiest region to start in. Definitely a very good idea if you're new to the game. But enough about that, it's time to start talking about the bases with Number 4, the Clarington House and the Country Church. Yes, these two are bundled together. The Clarington House is this region's starter home. Whenever you go to Meagher Valley, you will always start here. It doesn't have an entry requirement, and as a result, it's a very simple base, having 3 small facilities available and no open large facilities, though it does have a bedroom with 4 beds, which is equivalent to a large facility. However, this base isn't strictly bad. It does have 6 built-in beds, which makes it very useful for building up your community size and then launching directly into one of the larger bases. But it's not really a base you would want to stay in for a prolonged amount of time, hence the bottom tier rating. What about the Country Church, though? This is the second smallest base in Meagher Valley, a 4-man base. It'll cost you 500 influence to get in. And the reason why it shares the rating with the Clarington House instead of being 1 rank higher is because you pretty much never want to move into the Country Church. And that's because normally a 4-man base has a more central location, so it kind of commands the map a bit, but the Country Church is way off to the side. To make matters worse, it's not a whole lot better than the Clarington House. You do get access to a large open facility, but you only get 3 small facilities, which is less than the other region's 4-man bases. So the fact that it's not really much of an upgrade over the starter home, combined with that it's not closer to the middle of the map, it's still a big drive, means that you may as well just move into a larger base. You should just pass over this one. If I were to look for the silver lining here, it would definitely be that the area and the base itself is rather aesthetically pleasing. So if you mainly want a base that looks nice and you don't really care about the efficiency or the size, then this could be an option. But let's move on to the next rating with Number 3, the Rural Police Station. This base is tied with Whitney Field as the worst geographic location in the game. The police station is all the way to the north, while Whitney Field is all the way down to the south. So both of those bases will wind up with the most exaggerated drives when you have to do errands. You still get some interesting stuff with the police station, though. You get 2 large facilities and 3 small facilities, which is really strong for a 5-man base. And you also get the police armory as a built-in. No other base has anything like this. You'll also get a bedroom area with 4 beds, which will be a reoccurring theme in this region. What the police armory does is allow you to build certain types of ammunition as well as some disposable weapons like flashbang grenades. It's okay if you don't have ammo presses, but if you do have ammo presses, you're really not going to get a whole lot of value out of this, so despite being unique, not the most useful of facilities. And that's why it is rated where it is. Even though it has decent customization, you will quickly see that the next bases coming up can beat it. Number 2, Mazzara Farm and Camp Kelenqua. One of the oddities about Meagher Valley is that there are 3 5-man bases in the region. That's not how it works in Drucker County and Cascade Hills. They have 2 5-man bases and 1 6-man base, whereas this region, Meagher Valley, has 3 5-mans and a 6-man base. As a result, the 3 5-man bases are fairly similar to each other, and really the core difference between Mazzara and Kelenqua is that Kelenqua has one more small facility than Mazzara, while Mazzara is basically sacrificing that one small facility to have the most dominant position on the map, basically right in the middle. I mean, if we compare them, you can see they both have 2 large facilities. Kelenqua has 5 small, while Mazzara has 4 small, so they are very similar bases, and also why they're able to overpower the rural police station. They both also have a bedroom facility with 4 beds in it, so you can see how all of the 5-man bases here are fairly similar. One last difference with the Mazzara Farm is it does have the fertile soil bonus, which means that any of the farming type facilities you build here will be 30% more productive. Which one you choose is basically going to be whether or not you want 1 extra facility or if you want to be right in the middle of the map. But hold that thought real quick, because these bases I think you should skip directly into. Number 1, Squelones Brewing Company and Whitney Field. Holy crap, the number 1 slot is actually shared. An 8-man base is going to share the prestigious slot of number 1 with a 6-man base. This either means that Whitney Field, the 8-man base, is lacking, or Squelones Brewing Company is exceptional. And I believe you'll find that the latter is true. Let's start with Squelones Brewing Company, though. This base is arguably the best 6-man base in the entire game. You get the standard 2 large facilities and 5 small facilities that you would come to expect from a 6-man base, but the built-ins for Squelones is insane. A lot of them just give you extra morale on the house, but most importantly, you get the 2 crafting stills. Unique to Squelones, you can't get these anywhere else. These 2 stills are supercharged. They provide knowledge of chemistry so you can automatically use them. They bypass the need for you to have a trader to upgrade your still to level 2. And they're even better than the trader's level 2 stills because they can make craft beer and the regular level 2 stills can't. Craft beer is a great way to make influence because it turns your food into valuable beer that you can sell. This was actually one of my major tips in the How to Farm Influence video. You see, the key for a 6-man base to compete with the biggest base, the 8-man base, it has to do something really unique so that there is actually an argument to use it over the 8-man base, and Squelones absolutely fulfills that. It also has the second best location on the map, so this base pretty much has everything going for it. Now let's talk about Whitney Field, though. This is the largest base in the region. It is the 8-man base, and it is the most customizable base in the game because it has 3 large facilities and 5 small facilities available for customization. The barricaded strip mall also has 3 large facilities, but it only has 4 small, so it doesn't quite have the customization that Whitney Field does. One of the unique aesthetics about Whitney Field is that it's not a building. There's no roof, and there really aren't much in the way of walls. There's a fence, and then there is this concrete wall, but for the most part, it's an open-air base. But the real thing is that this base poses an interesting question in how you tackle its sustainability. By that I mean, how do you intend to deal with the material loss? You're probably going to have about -5 materials lost per day in this base, as well as the bedding situation, because this base doesn't have built-in beds. Well, it doesn't have built-in beds that are worthwhile. You see, if you choose to use one of your 3 large facilities to either resolve the bedding situation, maybe you're a warlord so you build a Spartan barracks, or you choose to make a staging area to neutralize the material cost, well, you're basically making a worse container fort. Because the container fort has 6 small facilities, and while it only has 2 large, you do get 8 built-in beds and 10 universal resource capacity. That means you can use your outpost to neutralize the material loss and call it a day, because now you have a nice balanced base with both beds and materials covered. If you do this in Whitney Field, you're basically left with a worse container fort, and you're not really using the promise of Whitney Field, the ability to use 3 of your favorite large facilities. That said, it's not wrong to have a worse container for it as a setup. It's just something to think about. Another thing you could do is say, to hell with the material losses. -4, -5 a day, I'll just deal with it. After all, materials are probably the most common of all the resources that you find, so you might be able to deal with it. That's a perfectly valid strategy. The last idea I have is to use the Red Talon bunk rooms because they provide a lot of beds in a small facility. And you could also use hybrid facilities that also include beds, such as the lounge, which gives you 2 beds, or the Red Talon officers' quarters, which also gives you 2 beds. And then use your remaining outposts to cover the last few beds you may need and then neutralize your material losses. However, this strategy does mean you will need to own Daybreak and play Daybreak. Whichever you choose, though, it will still be a very powerful base indeed. In conclusion, Meagher Valley is the easiest map to play in because the map is really flat, you can drive around with ease, and the bases are more powerful than average. My recommendation for you is that you basically skip all of the bases directly into Squelones Brewery. That's because it doesn't cost a whole lot more to get into Squelones in comparison to the 5-man bases, and it's just so much better. Ultimately, once you've gathered the people and the resources, you may want to move into Whitney Field, but honestly, Squelones is a perfectly fine place to stay in for the long term. But hey, that's that. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the list, and if you disagree, what would be your counter list and why? Like this video if it was useful, subscribe for future State of K2 content, and remember that you don't have to be good to get good.